Fire! 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 Fire in compartment 3782 Lima! The words echo through steel corridors at 3 a.m. Sailors jolt awake in the dark. There's no time to think, no time to be afraid. Because on a warship in the middle of the ocean, hundreds of miles from land, a fire isn't just an emergency. It's a countdown to catastrophe. You're surrounded by jet fuel, explosives, high-pressure steam lines, and the only thing standing between you and total destruction is a damage control training course you took 6 months ago. This is what happens when a Navy ship catches fire at sea. To understand why naval fires are so uniquely deadly, you need to understand what a warship actually is. Modern destroyers, aircraft carriers, and amphibious assault ships aren't just floating metal boxes. They're compressed cities, power plants, airports, hospitals, and arsenals, all crammed into a space smaller than a shopping mall. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer carries over 300 sailors, 90 tons of jet fuel, missiles loaded with high explosives, gas turbine engines generating 100,000 horsepower. All of it separated by thin steel bulkheads and narrow passageways where the temperature can hit 120 degrees Fahrenheit on a normal day. Now add fire. Unlike a building on land, you can't evacuate. You can't call 911. The nearest Coast Guard station might be 500 miles away. The ocean isn't your escape route. It's a 50-degree death sentence if you go overboard. So the U.S. Navy has developed one of the most sophisticated damage control systems in the world. Every sailor, whether you're a cook, a radar technician, or a helicopter pilot, is trained as a firefighter from day one. Because on a ship at sea, everyone fights the fire, or everyone dies trying. Let's walk through what happens in real time. It's 0314 hours. A welding spark ignites hydraulic fluid in a maintenance space deep below the waterline. Within seconds, the temperature spikes to 1,000 degrees. Smoke begins filling the compartment. Somewhere on the ship, a heat detector trips. An alarm screams through the 1MC, the ship's loudspeaker system. Fire! 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 Fire in compartment 3782 Lima. Repair locker 3, provide. The moment those words are spoken, 3 things happen simultaneously. First, the watchstander in Damage Control Central, DC Central, pulls up the ship's schematic on a digital display. They can see exactly where the fire is, what's stored there, what's adjacent, whether it's near the engine room, the magazine, or berthing areas where sailors are sleeping. Second, the repair locker team, sailors staged throughout the ship with firefighting gear, sprints toward the scene. They have 90 seconds to get there. Not 91, 90. Third, the engineering officer of the watch begins isolating the affected zone. Ventilation systems shut down automatically to prevent the fire from spreading through air ducts. Fuel lines, electrical panels, and water pressure are rerouted. In 60 seconds, a sleeping warship transforms into a coordinated emergency response machine. But here's the nightmare. That fire is already out of control. The first sailors to arrive are called the on-scene leader and the nozzle man. They're wearing firefighting ensembles, bulky silver suits that weigh 50 pounds, self-contained breathing apparatus, and helmets with face shields. They can barely see. The passageway is filled with thick black smoke, so dense it's like walking through ink. The heat is unbearable, even through the suit. But they push forward. The nozzle man drags a 1.5-inch fire hose. Behind him, a team of sailors feeds the line through hatches and down ladders. Communication happens through hand signals and shouted commands that are barely audible over the roar of flames. When they reach the compartment, the heat is so intense they can't get within 10 feet of the door. This is where training overrides instinct. The nozzle man switches the hose to a fog pattern, a fine mist that cools the air and pushes back the heat. The team inches forward. Every step is calculated. Too fast, and the steam from the water will cook them alive. Too slow, and the fire spreads to adjacent spaces. Then comes the moment every firefighter dreads. The door to the burning compartment is hot to the touch. Opening it could cause a backdraft, a sudden influx of oxygen that turns the fire into an explosion. The on-scene leader makes the call. Crack the door. Fog pattern. Stand by. The door swings open an inch. Flame roars out. The nozzleman blasts it with water fog, cooling the doorway enough to push inside. They're now fighting fire in a room filled with burning hydraulic fluid, electrical cables, and metal that's glowing red hot. And they're standing on a ship in the middle of the ocean. 30 minutes into the fire, the situation is critical. The initial attack team has knocked down the primary blaze, but the fire has spread through cable runs into 2 adjacent compartments. Smoke is pouring into the mess decks. Temperatures are spiking near the aviation fuel tanks. Then the unthinkable happens. A sailor on the hose team collapses from heat exhaustion. Within seconds, 2 teammates drag him back through the smoke. They rip off his mask. He's unconscious but breathing. The corpsman, the ship's medic, starts an IV while they move him to fresh air. The fire team doesn't stop. A new sailor grabs the hose and steps into position. No hesitation, no time for fear. This is the moment where training becomes instinct, where ordinary people do extraordinary things. In Damage Control Central, the assistant makes a critical call. Activate the AFFF system, aqueous film-forming foam. This isn't regular firefighting foam. It's a chemical blanket that suffocates fires by cutting off oxygen. It's incredibly effective, but also controversial. Modern AFFF contains PFAS, a forever chemical that's toxic and doesn't break down. The Navy is phasing it out, but in an emergency, it's still the best tool. The foam floods the compartment. The flames sputter, die. Within minutes, the fire is out. But the battle isn't over. The fire is extinguished, but now the ship faces a new threat: secondary damage. The burned compartment is filled with toxic sludge, charred insulation, melted plastic, chemical foam. The air is poison. Electrical systems are fried. Structural steel is weakened. And there's water. Thousands of gallons sloshing in the lower decks. The damage control teams switch from firefighting to damage assessment. Engineers crawl through the wreckage with thermal cameras and gas detectors, checking for hot spots that could reignite. Welders shore up damaged bulkheads. Pumps work around the clock to remove water. The ship is still at sea, still operational, but it's wounded. The captain orders a full head count. Every sailor is accounted for, except one is in medical, being treated for burns and smoke inhalation. The crew breathes a collective sigh of relief, but they all know it could have been so much worse. While firefighters battle the blaze, Damage Control Central is playing a different game, one where every decision could save or sink the ship. DC Central is the brain of the operation. Banks of monitors display real-time data: compartment temperatures, smoke detectors, flooding sensors, hull integrity. The damage control assistant, usually a senior officer, is coordinating multiple teams at once. Here's what they're tracking. Fire boundaries. If the fire reaches the magazine where missiles are stored, the ship becomes a floating bomb. If it hits the engine room, they lose propulsion. If it breaches the hull near the waterline, they're taking on water while burning. Toxic gas. Naval fires produce hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, and other chemicals that kill faster than the flames. DC Central monitors air quality and decides when to evacuate certain sections. Firefighting water. This is the paradox. You need water to fight fire, but too much water makes the ship unstable. Every gallon pumped into the lower decks adds weight. If the ship tilts to one side, it can capsize. So DC Central calculates in real time how much water, where, and when to pump it back overboard. Meanwhile, the ship's captain has moved to the bridge. They're making gut-wrenching decisions. Do we turn into the wind to blow smoke away from firefighters, but risk fanning the flames? Do we flood the compartment and risk losing stability? Do we call for help, knowing a rescue ship is 12 hours away? Every choice is a gamble. Naval fires have shaped the way the U.S. Navy trains and operates. The most infamous example is the USS Forrestal disaster of 1967. On July 29, a stray electrical signal launched a rocket across the flight deck of the aircraft carrier. It struck a parked jet, igniting fuel. Within minutes, the fire spread to bombs and missiles. Explosions tore through the deck. 134 sailors died. 161 were injured. Among the survivors was a young Navy pilot named John McCain, who barely escaped his burning cockpit. The Forrestal fire changed everything. The Navy overhauled its damage control training, created specialized schools, installed better firefighting systems, made fire drills mandatory and relentless. Fast forward to 2020, the USS Bonhomme Richard, an amphibious assault ship, caught fire while docked in San Diego. The fire burned for 4 days. The ship was eventually scrapped, a $4 billion loss. The investigation revealed failures in training, leadership, and firewatch procedures. It was a brutal reminder. Even with modern technology, human error can be catastrophic. But here's what the Navy doesn't publicize enough: the fires that don't make headlines. Every year, there are dozens of shipboard fires that sailors extinguish before they become disasters. Electrical shorts, galley grease fires, fuel leaks. These sailors don't get medals or news coverage. They just do their jobs. Because on a Navy ship, firefighting isn't heroic, it's mandatory. So what happens during a Navy ship fire at sea? Chaos, fear, smoke so thick you can't see your hand in front of your face. But also precision, courage, sailors who run toward the fire instead of away